My name is Reed Mahan, and today I'll be doing a presentation on the style aspects of rod puppets. Now, before we begin, please disregard the static that surrounds me because I cannot fix it, but we'll just go right through it. All right, let's begin. So, if you've been watching my group members presentation, you may have picked up on some things like the cultural influences and maybe where it even came from, and that's all well and good. But I'm here to teach you about the most important aspect, which is, of course, style. And so when you're making something, right, you have the base ingredients. You have, your beef, your butter, some spice, some rub maybe. But the meal is not complete, says your friend Chad, unless you add the secret sauce, which is true. In this case, the secret sauce is style. And once you add that ingredient, you have the perfect meal. So basically, I'm going to be talking about the stylistic aspects of rod puppetry today. And we'll get right into it. So one of the stylistic aspects is where they perform, where rod puppeteers perform. Now they can perform anywhere, both temporary and permanent locations. However, most of them resemble the proscenium style of a theater space. And that is because in rod puppetry, it helps maximize the immersion of the audience and the stealth of the performer. And that is because in puppetry in general, you don't want to be seen by the audience because it ruins the effect of what the puppet is doing. But puppeteers can perform in a variety of places, and it can be anywhere from a temporary booth, which is what this is up here, or waist deep in a body of water, which is what water puppeteers do, and I'm about to show you some of those. Stages aren't absolutely necessary, but they are recommended because otherwise the puppeteer is out in the open, and it kind of ruins the effect of the puppet. And here are pictures of the water puppets I was talking about. Here they are right here. And here are the puppeteers who maneuver them with large wooden rods that go under the water. And the way they move the rod is determined where the puppets move on the water. So it's kind of cool. But an interesting comparison between a regular proscenium theater and like a puppet theater is the fact that they both have a curtain. And this way, not only does it hide the puppeteer when they're doing performance, but it also acts as a sort of a gateway between the audience and then what's happening in the story. And that's very similar to what the proscenium arch is in actual theater, and I just thought it would be interesting to mention that. But of course, there are other reasons why it's not arena or thrust, the type of theater. And that's because if you're in an arena theater, you can be seen on all sides of the audience, which ruins the effect. And on thrust, it's the same, because you can be seen on the left and right side of the audience when you don't want to if you're the puppeteer. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the set and scenery. And props and scenery in rod puppet performances are mostly simple, and they're just backdrops. They're not very complex. And that's because the complex scenery distracts from the puppet and is also very hard to maneuver when you're the puppeteer, because you're the only one back there basically, and you're trying to operate all these things, and it just gets very difficult. Although that doesn't mean that all stages are like this. It's just the textbook definition, I suppose. But some puppet stages, like this one over here, will have other scene pieces like clouds and stuff that will hang on a pulley system, and that would make it more complex. But it still works. It's just what they do for this particular piece. But most stages, like I said, only have changing backdrops, which is what you see right here. And that just shows that they're changing locations and all this stuff. But overall, there's not that much set and scenery stuff to have. Music is another important aspect, and a really important aspect of puppet theater, because it breathes life into whatever's happening on stage. And the movement of the puppet itself, it gets enhanced and becomes more meaningful whenever music is playing that supports what's going on on the stage. Music was originally done by the puppeteers themselves, or a orchestra or a group of musicians, but when it came to the 17th century, they started developing automated forms of automated forms of music that didn't involve anyone playing anything, which is sort of what this diagram shows right here. But nowadays, of course, we have tape recorders, and basically if you don't want to have a live performance of live musicians, then you just have a tape recorder record the music and then play it over some speakers, and that works. There is no typical form of music, traditional music, but there is traditional music surrounded around the Vietnamese water puppets, because it's a long-standing form of puppetry, and they have a group of musicians over here that play traditional instruments specifically for water puppetry in Vietnam. It's kind of cool. Another important aspect is sound effects. And sound effects, they can be made, and they add another dimension of immersion and just make what's happening on stage, once again, just more interesting to watch. They can be pre-recorded, like a BAM noise that you just record on a tape recorder, again. They can be man-made, like a whistle, or they can be artificially produced, like just like a sheet of tin. If you shake a sheet of tin, like over here, really hard, and then it simulates the sound of thunder, which is what they use in puppetry to in place of real thunder, because that would be dangerous. But another important aspect would be lighting. And lighting is really important because lighting helps to separate the puppet from the puppet master or the puppeteer, and it really makes the puppet stick out on its own rather than being attached to someone else. And if you have lighting, you would want to attach it to the front of the proscenium, but it can be placed elsewhere. And the main goal is to light up the main box area of where the puppets are performing, because you want the puppets to be seen and you don't want the puppeteers to be seen, which is why they're outside of the box. But they overall make it look livelier, and but other times there's not, you don't have artificial light because you're performing like outside. So in that case, you'll just have whatever the outside daylight, if it's daylight or night, and then yeah. But another cool thing is they have blacklight puppetry, which is an interesting thing. Is when they coat everything with the blacklight layer of paint, and then when you shine a blacklight on it, obviously it would glow and pop out more. And it also helps to even more differentiate the puppet from the puppet master, because you literally, from this image, you cannot see a puppet hand or string or anything. So it really helps with the immersion factor. Now, a really interesting thing here, is the costumes. Costumes for puppeteers vary depending on whether or not they want to be seen or how often they will be seen by the audience. If they don't want to be seen at all, then they're probably, if they plan on being seen, then they're probably going to wear something like this, which is similar to a ninja's outfit. I know it kind of looks ridiculous, but believe me, they look like this. I'm not joking. But if they don't plan on being seen at all, and they're just not going to show up in the audience's point of view ever, then they'll wear just dark clothing or just casual clothing, like Mr. Peter Parker over here, this lady over here, or the Vietnamese water puppeteers, and they just wear overalls to protect themselves from the water. But besides that, they're wearing casual clothes. But if they're not doing any of that, then if you want to be seen or have to be seen by the audience, then you want to wear something that matches the puppet, so it looks like you are just part of the puppet, and so you don't take away from what the puppet is doing during performance. And just don't just take my word for it, because I have an example right here of Chinese rod puppetry. And if we skip ahead a little bit, you can see the lighting, how it lights the entire stage area, and how you can see simple set pieces. And the set overall is proscenium in nature, and then you can see there's no props really right now. You'll see one in a few seconds. Sorry. But yeah, overall it's just this, and it's pretty enjoyable to watch actually. You have a prop pillow, very useful. But yeah, that is basically what an example of real life rod puppetry would look like with all the aspects we talked about. That's very cool. Now we'll go on to the next slide here. And so the question is it presentational or representational? But I'm going to have to say that it is representational, because the puppets and puppetry in general, the goal of puppetry is to tell a story, and it's not about catering to an audience or making them laugh or something. Sometimes it is, but those are very rare circumstances, especially since the puppeteer can't see the audience. They can't really act in nature towards them. It's mostly about telling a story, and thus the puppets do not acknowledge the audience, which makes it more representational rather than presentational. And there's my works cited page, and that's the end. Stay in school, kids, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you for watching. Here we go.